Coogs house. Houston is going bowling after knocking off Arizona 31-28 in what ended up being a thriller. But let's have some fun.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. It's a little stormy outside, some thunder and lightning. If the Wi-Fi goes out, pay attention. We'll be back as quickly as possible. But today's just brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel. More on that fun later. It is hard to get past that Houston just gained bowl eligibility for the first time as a Big 12 member with a 31-28 victory over the Arizona Wildcats. We're breaking that down in the first segment, that and bowling in the second, some nightcaps of sorts in the third. If you don't know what to say in the comments down below besides excitement and those kinds of things, tell us what your bowling score is these days. I don't know. I'm not a great bowler. I think I break 100 sometimes. I don't know. Like I said, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. More on all of that fun later. Ethan Sanchez, the Sanchez himself, walks this one off with a just over 40-yard field goal. Had missed one earlier in the matchup, and frankly, might have gotten off a little bit in this one. Shortly, the 2 plays before the field goal, Houston had an awkward snap, might have gotten away with having a player in motion forward at that point. I don't think I'm giving it back, though. There were a number of calls in that game that I thought went the other way, so that it ended the way it did there does not ultimately sway me a whole lot. What does sway me a whole lot in this one is Houston is going to run the football and going to run it effectively. Houston put up 230 yards on the ground. Dean Connors had 100 yards himself on 20 carries. I teach history, not math. That's 5 yards a carry. It's pretty strong. Conner Weigman had 98 yards at 14 carries. That's 7 yards a carry for that man. He had a touchdown on the ground and 3 through the air. Conner Weigman had 15 to 23 completions, 164 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. And I have to say that people in Arizona were awfully confident they'd only give up 1 passing touchdown through the air all season long. And Conner Weigman just put up 3 of them. Now, admittedly, the majority of this game was based around running the football, but I don't think I'm going to take that for granted either. Amari Thomas came down with 2 of those 3 touchdown passes himself. Tanner Koziel had the other. The dynamic duo keeps on dynamic duoing, even in a pass game that ultimately really you were missing Boogie Johnson. And I think they know internally, if you'd asked the guys throughout the week, that he was probably not going to play, was in a short boot throughout the week, didn't suit up to warm up in this one, was just a game time decision. Lots of comments flying in. We've talked a lot about offense. I am going to talk about defense and Wrook Brown's impact in just a second, because that dude had a day, had 7 solo tackles, a couple big tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, a gigantic sack out of Wrook Brown, kind of decleater of Noah Fifita in that one. And the defense really outside of Wrook Brown, I know Kentrell Webb had his stats and Carlos Allen had his first official solo sack of the year and really kind of controlled the middle in a lot of ways. The defense struggled at different points in this game. There were just so few possessions because of how Houston ran the football that ultimately it did not matter. If I'm not mistaken, Arizona only punted the ball 1 time. I'll double check my stats. I'm talking here. But yes, 2 total punts. 2 total punts, to just point out, from Arizona on the game. It wasn't like Houston turned them over a whole lot. It wasn't like Houston forced them to turn the ball over on downs a whole lot or anything like that. They just shortened the game with their offense and then that stretch right before the half, okay? Houston has a long touchdown drive right before the half, in the second quarter, I should say, not right before the half, right? A long touchdown drive in the second quarter that takes 96 yards, 13 plays, a little over 6.5 minutes. They honestly get the ball back from Arizona after a punt that goes 9 plays, 4 minutes, and then quickly Houston's able to score in 1 minute and 20 seconds. You have long drive, long time, short drive, short time into the half. Come back out of the half. You have a 17-play, 75-yard drive that goes for 9 minutes and 4 seconds. And suddenly, before that series of drives, we went touchdown, punt, touchdown, half, touchdown. you suddenly go from down 14-7 to up 28-14 in complete control of the football game. That's a tough, gritty style of football and win that Willie Fritz and Slade Nagel really, really like. But ultimately, if I'm being honest, as much fun as Houston Cougar football has been at various points of my lifetime, we've seen flash and pizzazz and high scoring and Derek King and Greg Ward and Case Keenum landing up scoreboards. This is different. And it's different in a way that is effective and wins. And it leads with its chin and its fists in a way that's a lot of fun. Now, I got some people commenting that are, positive and negative throughout the comments. I get that a lot. Edward here points out he's proud of the team, showed a lot of grit. Derek here says that the improvement from week 1 to now is impressive, shows we have great coaching. There's been some things that have improved and some things that haven't, but I think there are far more things that have. I think that's fair to say. Go Coogs, closer than what should have been. Defense needs help, but a win is a win. A couple things here. Secondary, talk about. As far as people want to talk about the secondary a little bit, I think the biggest thing to me on the secondary was the inability to get off the field on 3rd and 4th down, and then missed tackles. We'll see what the PFF numbers coming in. They're not always exactly right. I'll probably do my own tally as I watch it for the second time I watch on Sundays. But in the moment right now, it feels like Houston missed a lot of tackles, obviously. It feels like it was not their best effort there. And admittedly, a couple of those like going for a pick or pass breakup moments that don't count as missed tackles functionally feel like missed tackles as well. But I think the biggest thing here is, if you're going to run the football like that and control the time of possession in this game like you did, Houston had the ball for actually less time than Arizona. That can't be right. No, that's right. That adds up to 60. Per ESPN stats and info, Houston actually only had the ball for 29 and a half minutes. I thought it was a lot longer than that. But I think the big deal there is they had the ball for so little the first quarter that most of that 29 minutes comes in the second, third, and fourth. But either way, the way they ran the football there, 230 yards on 45 rushes, getting over 5 yards per clip as a team, just constantly beating down that door. I want to point out, too, that schematically, and we'll probably do more of this throughout the week, Houston has gone from what was more of a inside zone with a kick out from Tanner Koziol on the backside kind of look to where now they're doing a lot more of true read actions to get Conner Weigman involved. They ran, we call it the QB power read, but it was made famous by Baker Mayfield. I've heard some people just call it the Oklahoma play, where either a running back or receiver is going flat down the line, like the outside part of the read, and then the quarterback is in there holding it. And quarterback actually has the power. It's a quarterback power blocking scheme with the sweep action out of the running back or wide receiver. Houston ran that at least 8 times today, and with Dean Connors or receivers either one. And the deal there is that the sweep action out of the running back can pull the defensive lineman out and functionally feel like a block because you sneak behind him with the power. Or what you're also getting is, because the defensive lineman's unblocked, he's coming down into the hole there and crashing it like he's supposed to wrong arm a puller or something, and then the split end or running back can get around him. Either way, they fell to that today in a way that I hadn't seen a whole lot. They've run quarterback power. They've run jet sweep. They've run both of those actions. Combine the two today, clearly put Arizona in a little bit of a loop. And it really helped, honestly, open up a lot of other things. Now, they did throw the ball effectively today. I mentioned Conner Weigman was 15-23 for 3 touchdowns and 164 yards against a defense that felt stout against the pass. I don't know that they win that game if they only pass the football, though. As strong as that pass performance was, though, it was completely a yin and yang work with the run game there. Passed it when they had to. I thought Koziol made a great catch on his touchdown. Koziol led the team in catches, 6 catches, 40 yards. He's become more of the check down kind of guy in a lot of the midfield stuff. Maury Thomas, big plays. Harvey Broussard had just 1 catch, and I know that Dolly gets in the stat book. I would point out that he seems to be emerging as a potential deep threat, and when they chuck it down to him and get a PI penalty, while it does not function like a deep completion, it did feel like it worked in their favor a little bit. I want to keep talking about this game and bowling and why I'm so happy this team finally gets to go bowling. But today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at DoorDash. Now, it's a Saturday, it's the weekend, and it's time to crown the MVP. I'm giving that MVP award to none other than Conner Weigman. I could hear you talk about Wrook Brown. I could hear you talk about Dean Connors. I could hear all those arguments, but Conner Weigman was able to deliver powered by DoorDash, just like you see every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. Conner Weigman was able to deliver when it matters most through the air with his legs, that impressive fourth down conversion to keep the drive alive and ultimately kick a field goal at the end there was important. And just like he delivered for the Coogs, DoorDash can deliver for your Saturdays. DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order and stack it up all season long, saving up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order today, keep the streak alive. View your game day only DoorDash Streaks. Terms apply. Promo code goes through November 18th. Today's show is also brought to you by Arizona Supply House, because when the opening whistle blows and you need to repair it, the rest of Saturday, you got to go repair the house or whatever, do the rest of your day. Get your crew moving forward, supplyhouse.com. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from your most trusted brands in the business. Real-time inventory and honest lead times help keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com for free and sign up using promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Parker Ainsworth locked on Coogs here, breaking down Houston beating Arizona 31-28, going bowling at this point, 7 games into the season. And I said throughout the week a little bit that this is such a big opportunity for this program. It's the first bowl eligible season for Houston as a Big 12 member, which opens up a whole slate of new bowl games, obviously, that you did not have access to in the American necessarily. And that's important too from an exposure perspective. But the biggest thing here when you're rebuilding a program, inserting a culture, building up a culture, is that means functionally you get another month of working with your guys, right? When the season ends at the end of November, you're not going home. You're working towards a bowl game. And that is so important when you're establishing something like Willie Fritz and company are establishing in Houston. And that adds to the magnitude of this win. Now, does Houston end up going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the Liberty Bowl, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, the Alamo Bowl? We'll see where those chips fall. I would say it's 6-1 right now. It's probably on the high end of that bowl stretch, and it feels really, really good to be heading into Arizona State, the defending conference champion, next weekend. Heading into their place at 6-1 kind of helps you feel good about yourself in a lot of ways heading into that one. You get to bowl eligibility and all of that with a dominant culture type of feeling performance today. I know we talk about culture and standards and what Kelvin Sampson has built with the basketball program, but it's 2025. And you go back and look at that program in 2014, 15, 16, 17. They built towards postseason appearances with real strife and strain and work. And while the football program actually was much more successful back then, it's interesting to see how, like, you're kind of seeing the football program take some steps. Now, as far as other notoriety and things like this go, being 6-1 in the Big 12, especially if, like, you see Utah take a second loss tonight or BYU take their first loss in that Holy War matchup. We'll see what happens between Arizona State and Texas Tech as well. I actually don't have a lot of the other Big 12 scores, but I'm even too focused in on this one. It does look like UCF has opened it up on West Virginia. TCU Baylor's close, but neither of those teams are ranked. You could see some movement in the top 25 for sure. I know there's also like Georgia Ole Miss is the SEC game, and I think there's probably also an ACC game. Miami lost last night. They're not going to drop out of the top 25, I don't think. I do think there's a potential you see Houston move in. And if and when that happens tomorrow, we'll probably break it quickly in a short and talk about it more on Monday. Sundays can be kind of more of a family day, right? But really, really excited for what this means for the program. Going bowling, getting the recognition this program deserves is such a big, big moment. And I hope everyone listening to this is breathing it in. I see right here, Kenneth says, what a great win. Let's go. Let's get several more and get that one of the good Bulls. Go Coogs. Derek points out he's ready for a rematch with Tech in Arlington, which technically is not off the table. Probably would require Tech going undefeated and Houston going undefeated from here on out. and maybe a couple other things going on with Houston's strength of schedule. They probably cannot withstand a whole bunch of other teams being in that one-loss region because of some of the head-to-heads and tiebreakers, right? But with that being said, if Houston were the second team at 11-1 and Tech were at 12-0, they actually theoretically would both match up. Now that would require some other chaos, including like probably BYU beating Utah today, but taking another loss or two at other points in the season and whatever. And it's all possible. I don't want to act like it's not possible. But Derek, I appreciate the optimism and like that angle a whole heck of a lot. Now, we talked about Wrook Brown. We mentioned Carlos Allen. On the defensive side of the ball, I think one guy that's getting not a whole lot of stats and maybe a little bit more notoriety is needed is Khalil Laufau. And maybe it's because people like me are still struggling with that name way after we ought to be, but he is truly dominating the run game in a way. He was all over the field in this one, and it stuck out because honestly, he's a big dude wearing number 18 with loose short sleeves, like halfway out of his sleeve, short sleeves, and it it's easy to see him on the field making like impactful things, but he only gets credit for a couple tackles in this one because that's not really his job. The same way we talk about Carlos Allen eating blocks and not getting the statistical impact, but making a big game impact. That applies to Lefau too. I also think Eddie Walls had a particularly good game in this one. Get credit with a half sack. He shared one with Wrook Brown at one point in the game, but he had a big pass bat down the line. He constantly pushed the pressure, and while they had trouble getting after Noah Fifita, and they did have 4 sacks, so we say that, with some understanding of what that means. Noah Fifita is a very fleet of foot guy. They got him off of his spots, and while he was better once he broke the pocket, I'd argue in a couple of instances, they did flush him to points where he was uncomfortable, and frankly led him to having one of his worst games of the season in a lot of, I don't know, decision-making kind of ways, I guess, qualitative ways. The guy was 24-26. He throws straight dimes. And Noah Fifita, I was talking to Damon. Damon came on the show on Friday, talked about things from the Arizona side. I was texting Damon during the game. And frankly, I said, look, I think Houston got away with one there at the end of the last call, but I'm not apologizing because I think y'all got away with some other ones. He goes, yeah, you're probably right. But the other thing I'll say, Damon and I both talked about was like, if Noah Fifita was like 6'3", this dude's Heisman contender, looking at the pros, might not be in college right now, right? And Houston saw it up close and impersonal. And what I think is impressive about this defense is they managed to find ways to win anyways, right? They did force those 2 punts, which ultimately was important in a game where the team had 6 possessions, right? I'm not counting that one play before half. I'm not counting that as a possession. I guess technically it's a 7th possession. Arizona had 6 possessions. Houston held them to scoring on just 4 of them. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but this is a prolific offense they've got, right? And those 2 punts proved to be, especially when you missed your own field goal on your second to last possession, that proved to be fairly important. And so standing up there is important there. Bruno Mesa pulls up the probably biggest criticism of the defense today, and tackling. I have a hypothesis. I think they actually tackled better in the first couple games of the year, including Colorado. I know you could talk what you want about Stephen F. or Rice, but Colorado is, I think, a good football team. They tackled them better than they have as of late. I wonder if part of that you do a lot more live tackling in preseason stuff, and then as guys start to get injured and beat up, do you do less live tackling throughout the year? I certainly know when I've done some high school coaching, that's been the way things have gone in the past, is if you start getting too many injuries, you don't want to risk any, and then you ultimately see how it plays out here where you're like trying to wrestle guys down instead of tackling guys down. Whatever the case is, big wash on the inverse. But the positive growth in this team is the offensive line is playing a lot better. Look, Demetrius at the center spot had 2 bad snaps. I would also point out that those are 2 visible mistakes, and offensive linemen often have a lot of invisible mistakes we don't think about, or a lot of invisible wins we don't talk about. And so while it's maybe not fair to talk about those 2 mistakes as being bigger than a missed blocking assignment here or there or something like that, we did see them. That being said, you don't run the football for 230 yards without having a dominant performance up front. Conner Weigman's done a great job of reading his blocks and keys and finding his way to snake through, but constantly he and Dean Conner ending up at a second and third level without really having a whole lot of things slowing them down. And so really, really impressed with the big fellas up front today. Oh, it's already time for nightcaps. We're going to have to get out some nightcaps in a second, but before we get to all that, Today's show is brought to you by everybody's over at Rougiette. Now, listen, when you cross a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla and they're all riding a T-Rex, what do you get? You get confidence, pure, unadulterated confidence. When you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. Exactly where Rougiette Go Long comes in. It's not just in their ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. Process is simple. Connect with board-certified doctor, 100% online. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your door. Prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rougiette.com, Rougiette.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's Rougiette.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure you use our codes to know that we sent you. And today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and I would point out that I told you to take Houston, I told you to take the over, and while I might have thought it was me lower scoring than it was, ultimately both of those things did hit. In NFL season's here, football season's here, FanDuel has offers you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, get $300 back in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 bonus bets to use across the app. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to use the FanDuel app today to get started. All right, last deal here quickly, and we made it through with the internet, so that means the Wi-Fi and the thunder and lightning did not throw me off too much here, but nightcaps. The first one is obviously going to Wrook Brown. Wrook Brown had 9 tackles, 7 of those solo, 3.5 of those happening behind the line of scrimmage. Had a couple pass breakups. It felt like 24 Kobe. Maybe that's the deal. He's everywhere on the football field. Wrook Brown, big time. Nightcap to Wrook Brown. I would also point out Carlos Allen has his first solo sack of the season. We mentioned this at the top of the episode, I think, but Carlos Allen's a guy that's looked like a pro all year from the interior. You don't get a lot of sacks. They had a big sack right before the half on the only play Arizona ran on that drive. Arizona thought about doing some kind of funky Hail Mary, whatever kind of stuff. Carlos Allen said no, sir, and got his own big sack there. He also had 5 other tackles. Big day for Carlos Allen. And again, he dominates up front while dealing with double teams all day long. So nightcap to Carlos Allen. A nightcap to Dean Connors. Dean Connors on the opposite side of the football. We talked a lot about the 100 yards on 20 carries for 5 yards a carry. I would also point out he had 3 catches for 38 yards, but he had a gigantic catch on a play-action play, 4th down to extend the drive that at the time felt like it was a nail in the coffin kind of play. Dean Connors continues to do a little bit of a lot of things very, very well. A high-level running back, to say the very least, for Houston. So glad he came across town from Rice and that whole transfer portal deal at the offseason. Houston lucked into a lot of things with that thing coming available when it did. But man, oh man, that one feels good. So tip of the cap, nightcap to Dean Connors. Dean. I can talk about other receivers. Kobe Young getting open deep. He only had 1 catch. I think Kobe Young continues to have an impact by taking the top off and opening stuff underneath, though. Maury Thomas, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's 50% of the time he caught the ball, he scored a touchdown. That feels like a big deal. Turner Cozio, 6 catches, led the team with a touchdown. Also a big deal. But ultimately, all of that happens because Conner Weigman had a day. Conner Weigman continues to be an impressive quarterback in the Houston Cougar system, playing exactly what Slade Nagel needs him to do. 15 to 23, 164 yards, hit a couple times now with 3 touchdowns and no turnovers against a defense that had only allowed 1 touchdown through the air. He also had another 98 yards on the ground. But I think what's most important to me about Conner Weigman is not a stat. I mean, outside of a win, I guess. I don't really usually assign those to quarterbacks, though. It was not a particular single play, but throughout the game, the guy was calm. He was precise. He delivered. And you could see it in the way he runs the football. He was intentional about everything he did, right? He does the quarterback read, pulls it, finds hole, fills hole, gets his yards, right? It's patience. You're not going to rush him up. When I think, obviously, y'all know I'm a basketball guy. I think about basketball guys and point guards not getting sped up, controlling the pace of the game. That was Conner Weigman in this one. He had the 6.5-minute touchdown drive in the second quarter. He had the less than 90-second touchdown drive in the second quarter. He had the over 9-minute touchdown drive in the third quarter. It was whatever Houston needed, Conner Weigman and the Houston Cougars were able to do, and that requires a guy that has complete command of a system. And I know it's only 7 games in. I know he started off somewhere else and didn't go so great there. It ain't all that Conner Weigman has grown into before our eyes. I can go back and pull up the comments from the Stephen F. Austin game. Before our own eyes, Conner Weigman has developed into a quarterback that can lead this program to at least a bowl game. And it really honestly looks like it could end up being potentially even more than that. And I think that's a lot of fun. I think it's a moment to go celebrate and enjoy. And I hope you go celebrate and enjoy that throughout the rest of your Saturday here. I got a bunch of comments flying in here. Bowl eligibility, great accomplishment. Let's go bowling. Our defense showed up. Some of those passes by Arizona were on the money. I would agree. Dean Connors, the MVP to Dominic here. He says thus far this year, he's so important in what they do in robbing possessions from the other team because they ran football robbing possessions. Walter says, go Coogs, baby. Dusto says it's a fun game to watch besides tackling. Connor Big Wall says seen comfortable in charge, unlike in the tech game. I think absolutely. How Weigman hides and sells the options, a work of art, comes from Dominic as well. I echo all of those sentiments, even the ones about working on tackling, breaking things more down throughout the weekend. I encourage you to go enjoy bowl eligibility, enjoy homecoming on campus, watch some other college football. We'll be talking about again Monday morning. Going to watch another time tomorrow afternoon. But man, I'm going to go enjoy this one as well. Locked on Coogs, primarily Locked On Podcast Network. You need a second listen today. Locked On Big 12's got you throughout the weekend, chiming in with what all is going on around the conference. Go freaking Coogs. Going bowling, baby. Going bowling.